What if your house burned down and your children simply weren't in the ashes? Not missing, not unaccounted for, just gone. No remains, no trace, nothing. On Christmas Eve, 1945, that is exactly what happened to the Sodder family of Fayetteville, West Virginia. 5 children. A fire so fast the house was gone in under an hour. And when investigators sifted through what was left the next morning, they found no human remains, no bones, nothing that proved those 5 kids had ever been in that house when it burned. The official ruling was death by fire, but the parents never believed it. Not for a single day. And before this story is over, you're going to understand exactly why. This file was never closed. Today, we're opening it. Case file 0115, the Sodder Children. George and Jennie Sodder were Italian immigrants who had built a life in the hills of West Virginia the hard way. George ran a trucking business. They had 10 children, which in 1945 wasn't unusual for a large Catholic family. They were known in the community. They were established. By all accounts, they were exactly what they appeared to be. A working-class American family trying to build something. Christmas Eve of 1945 was supposed to be a celebration. The war was over. Soldiers were coming home. The whole country was exhaling after years of grief. The Sodder home was full that night, decorations up, the younger kids excited, the older ones staying up late. George went to bed around midnight. Jennie followed not long after. Some of the children were still awake. At some point in the early morning hours, around 1 a.m., Jennie was woken up by the phone ringing. She answered. A woman's voice on the other end asked for someone by a name Jennie didn't recognize, then laughed. Strange laughter. Jennie hung up, noticed some lights were still on downstairs, and went back to sleep. She never got to sleep again. Within the hour, the house was on fire, and by the time George and Jennie got their bearings, the flames were already tearing through the structure with a speed that didn't feel right. They got 5 children out. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty, 5 of the 10, could not be reached. The staircase was already gone. George ran to grab a ladder he kept on the side of the house to reach the upper windows. The ladder was gone, and that is where this story stops being a tragedy and starts being something else entirely. Here is what investigators were able to confirm in the days and weeks after the fire. The phone line had been cut. Not damaged by fire, cut. Deliberately severed before the blaze started, which is why Jennie's earlier call was even possible. But why no one could call for help once the fire began? George ran to neighbors. The local fire department didn't arrive until well after 8 a.m., hours after the fire started. The house was already gone. The ladder George kept on the side of the property for exactly this kind of emergency. The ladder he ran for when he couldn't reach the upper windows was found later, tossed in a ditch down the embankment. Someone had moved it. When the fire was finally out, investigators searched the ashes for remains. They found a portion of vertebrae, a small piece, that a pathologist later said appeared to be from an adult, not a child, and may not have even been from a human body at all. House fires, even severe ones, leave behind calcified bone fragments. Teeth. They are among the most resilient structures in the human body. Investigators found none. The official conclusion was still death by fire. George and Jennie Sodder refused to sign the death certificates. But the piece of evidence that shook everything, that made the parents certain something else had happened that night, came not from the ashes. It came from the living. And this is where the story stops making sense. In the days after the fire, multiple witnesses came forward independently with accounts of seeing the Sodder children alive after the house had burned. A woman reported seeing a carload of people passing through Fayetteville on Christmas night. She said she saw children in the back seat who matched the description of the missing Sodder kids. She said one of them, a girl, made eye contact with her. A hotel manager in a nearby county reportedly told investigators she had seen a group of children matching the descriptions, accompanied by adults she didn't recognize, sometime after the fire. She said the children had seemed frightened. George Sodder had, in the months before the fire, made no secret of his opinions about Benito Mussolini and Italian fascism, opinions that weren't popular in certain circles and which he had apparently expressed publicly and loudly. According to George, a man had come to the house some time before the fire and made what George interpreted as a veiled threat, telling him that his house would go up in smoke and his children would be scattered to the winds. George took that seriously afterward. Investigators reportedly did not. One theory suggests the fire may have been set deliberately. Another suggests the children may have been taken, possibly to Italy, possibly through networks that existed at the time for moving people across borders. Neither theory has ever been proven. Neither has ever been fully ruled out. But the family wasn't done. They hired private investigators. They followed leads for years. And they did something that no one who drove through Fayetteville, West Virginia, for the next 2 decades could ignore. George Sodder built a billboard. He erected it right on his property along Route 16, one of the main roads through the area. On it were the faces of his 5 missing children, a description of the events of that night, and a direct appeal to anyone with information to come forward. That billboard stood for years. Decades. It became one of the most recognized landmarks in that part of West Virginia, not because of what it celebrated, but because of what it refused to accept. The Sodder family never stopped. They hired multiple private investigators over the years. Several of those investigators concluded, though they could not prove, that the children had likely survived the fire and been taken. One investigator reportedly traced a lead to Florida before it went cold. Others followed threads that pointed, vaguely and inconclusively, toward organized figures who may have had a reason to threaten the family. None of it was ever confirmed. All of it was enough to keep the family searching. Then, in 1967, 22 years after the fire, Jennie Sodder received something in the mail. An envelope, no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man. On the back, someone had written 4 words. "Louis Sodder. I love, brother." Louis was one of the 5 missing children. He would have been in his late 20s by 1967. Jennie looked at that photograph and said she believed it was him. She believed it was her son. The envelope was postmarked from Kentucky. It was never traced to a sender. The young man in the photograph was never identified, and that photograph is the last piece of evidence, if it can even be called that this case ever produced. So let's go back to the question we started with. What if your house burned down and your children simply weren't in the ashes? Here is what we know for certain. The phone line was cut before the fire. The ladder was moved before the fire. No verified human remains belonging to the 5 children were ever recovered. Multiple witnesses independently reported seeing children matching their descriptions after the fire. And 22 years later, a photograph arrived that has never been explained. Here is what we do not know. Who cut the phone line? Who moved the ladder? Whether the children escaped the fire, were taken, or died in a way that left no recoverable evidence. Who sent the photograph? Whether that young man was Louis Sodder or someone else entirely. The official record still lists Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty Sodder as deceased, killed in the fire of December 25th, 1945. Their parents never accepted that. George Sodder died in 1968, still searching. Jennie Sodder died in 1989. The billboard eventually came down. But the case was never closed. No one was ever charged. No remains were ever confirmed. No definitive answer was ever given to the family that spent 40 years refusing to give up. 5 children, 1 night. A fire that burned too fast, a phone line that was cut too early, a ladder that was moved by someone, and a photograph mailed from nowhere by no one. Somewhere in those facts is the truth about what happened to the Sodder children on Christmas Eve, 1945. We just haven't found it yet. Cold Archive never closes a file. What do you think happened? Tell us in the comments and subscribe, because the next file is already open.